Welcome to the Tourism Development Company's Meet Your Convention Bureau Business Forum. Well, many moons ago, Trinidad and Tobago was supposedly the best kept secret. Well, that secret is no more. Let's take you through this morning's session at the Movie Towne Banquet and Conference Centre.
The Trinidad and Tobago Convention Bureau is the department within the Tourism Development Company responsible for encouraging organizations to hold their meetings and conferences in Trinidad and Tobago. This is the Bureau's third installment of this forum as they seek to take advantage of one of the fastest growing niches in tourism, the business travel niche. Sales manager at the Convention Bureau, Ms. Avion Mills, explains how and why the Bureau works to achieve its mandate of increasing business tourism arrivals and promoting Trinidad and Tobago internationally to meeting planners.
The Convention Bureau puts buyers in touch with sellers. And among you here today, you may be a buyer or you may be a seller. So the buyers are associations who are looking for their next host destination, corporations who are bringing international conferences to a destination, professional bodies, maybe the ministry is bringing a conference, state enterprises, incentive groups looking to really give their top sellers, a reward for being the number one performers in their company. So the Convention Bureau acts as a conduit between the buyer, and let's look at who the seller is. So if you're in the hotel industry, airline industry, if you're a tour operator, perhaps you have a transportation company, a restaurant, or a third-party supplier. So you're in the business for providing exhibition services or, providing promotional material. Any of the third-party ancillary services necessary to make a conference successful, those persons are trying to sell business to the meeting planner who's looking for the destination. Meetings promote investment, trade, communications, technology. Meetings bring educational and professional development to a destination. And why? Because you are exposed to global expertise and facilitate knowledge transfer both locally and internationally. And meetings are known, they're a clean industry, meaning that they're really heading towards sustainability. Many conferences are looking for destinations who could support the green revolution. So instead of using these bottles, for example, you may have a pitcher of water with a glass, and that's why meetings are known as a clean industry. And meetings represent the high-end visitor spending. And what do we mean by that? Well, our director already alerted you that the business traveler tends to spend 2 to 3 times the amount of a leisure traveler. And that's what we mean by high-end spend. And that's why we're going after these business tourists, because they have money to spend. And in our Trinidad and Tobago example, when we do our exit surveys, the business traveler is telling us that they spend on average daily $146 US. But we know that that is very conservative. So if we use 250 US, because we know a stay at the Hyatt will run you close to 200 US a night. So these business planners are not really giving us the correct information, right? So you see one time how the business traveler really generates income in the economy, whether it's for the hotels and accommodation, registration, food and beverage, tours, entertainment, nightlife, shopping. Perhaps they're doing a spouse program because they didn't come alone, or they need transportation to get from the hotel to different venues. So this is where the money is being spent. And let's just take a look at some of the numbers. So if you use my example of $250 US per business traveler, you can quickly see that in 2013, we helped facilitate 35 conferences. And I use this example because it was a really nice round number. And in 2013, that translated into about 7,000 business delegates. So those business delegates will be made up of both local and international delegates. So assuming 40% of those conferences had assuming 40% of those delegates were foreign, and their daily spend of $250, and ICA, which is the International Association of Meetings and Conferences, told us that in each conference lasts about 4 days. So we're looking at a revenue generated of $2.8 million for the 35 conferences that we would have helped facilitate in 2013. So that's just one example. So this is the reason why we need your help to give us the leads. For those of you who are in associations, for those of you who have the ability to bid on a conference, you know, it's all well and good to go to the Bahamas or to Jamaica to travel and enjoy your conference, but have you considered bringing conferences to Trinidad and Tobago? Have you considered the economic impact of a meeting or a conference being held in Trinidad and Tobago and how it could trickle through the economy? So you know what? That makes you a tourism ambassador. So the Convention Bureau has a part to play, and you have a part to play. And here you have an entity that the government has put together to hold your hand through the bidding process. Yes, the bidding process could be tedious. Yes, it could be a very long process. Sometimes it takes 2 to 3 years to woo a conference to a destination. For the example of the travel professionals of color, we took about 3 years through the Ministry of Tourism and the TDC, going to their conference, joining their association, participating, and then bringing the conference in 2013 to Trinidad and Tobago. So, one conference with approximately 100 international delegates spending $250 US per day for 4 days, you can see how it generates money for the economy, $100,000 US dollars there. And these are very conservative numbers. From our exit surveys at the airport, Trinidad and Tobago in 2015 had 0.48 billion US in terms of business tourism expenditure. And according to the exit surveys and the trend, by 2020, it's anticipated that 58 billion we will experience from this niche. So again, you can see that it's a niche that is growing. It is a niche that it's up to us to leverage, you know, and benefit from. And in terms of our Caribbean neighbors, Trinidad and Tobago enjoys about 10 to 11% of the business expenditure for the region.
The event's keynote speaker was Ms. Connie Kinnard, the Vice President of Multicultural Tourism and Development from the Greater Miami Convention and Visitors Bureau. Ms. Kinnard says the key to developing business tourism is getting citizens to appreciate their community's culture and heritage.
Community-based tourism. It's growing in leaps and bounds, and with the world of false and fake, travelers are looking for authentic experiences, history, culture, food, music to connect with on a higher level. Community-based tourism development is a strategy used by tourism planners to mobilize communities into action to participate in broadening the scope of offerings in the area. The goal is socioeconomic empowerment and a value-added experience for local and out-of-town visitors. This process opens new niches for destinations and for the visitors. And I just want to talk about that. That's, you know, some wording, but basically what it does is it empowers the community. When the community is empowered, then that's better for the community, but then it also helps the visitor, of course. So empowering the communities, working together with the communities. Community-based development empowers people to become more aware of the value of their community assets, their culture, heritage, cuisine, and lifestyle. We talked about earlier, sometimes you do have to pull back and you have to recognize what you have here is a jewel. And if you don't think it's a jewel, then others may or may not think it's a jewel. So it's also a mindset for you locally if that's not where you are to do that. The cultural heritage here is great. When we refer to cultural heritage, it's simply something that is in heritage from the past, maintained in the present, and conserved for the future. This concept includes many things connected to history, values, sites, arts, and lifestyles from the past. Natural heritage means culturally significant landscapes and biodiversity, and you have that here. The preservation or conservation of cultural heritage is or should be the responsibility of each generation. So it's our responsibility, of course, in the hospitality industry, but it's also important as you're building awareness of what the Convention Bureau does, how it connects to the community so that you do have ambassadors really other than the people in the hospitality industry.
Mr. Colin Gopal is a member of the local chapter of the Institute of Electrical and Electronic Engineers, an organization which boasts more than 400,000 members worldwide. He says the Trinidad and Tobago Convention Bureau was instrumental in bringing the 50th anniversary conference of the IEEE to these shows.
Some of the assistance that we got from the Convention Bureau included development of our budget, which I can tell you sometimes can be a little frustrating from our end because they were quite meticulous at times. The RFP for the cultural event, which you'll see more of later on, they handled that completely on their own. And as the local organizing committee lead, they really, removed a big headache from my plate. They offered us their conference rooms for meetings with sponsors and other stakeholders. And in fact, they provided guidance as well on how to handle such meetings. The sponsorship prospectus, they gave us templates from which we were able to work. And I think the sponsorship prospectus that we did was actually quite professional. And they worked, it's so funny because they worked with us almost like they were part of us, and I think vice versa as well. We worked with them almost like we were part of the TDC. And I'm amazed how smooth and seamless that partnership evolved. They also provided us with destination material, where to go, what to do to our delegates. The airport meet and greet, we did not take them up on this one because another one of our sponsors, the Ministry of Trade, did that for us. One of the best parts, they also became a financial sponsor, and they bought one of our bronze packages, and they provided us with an extensive list of vendors and suppliers.
GISL's Nicola Barreto caught up with Ms. Kennard at the event.
I know one of the objectives of this forum is to form strategic, collaborative alliances. And I want to believe that that's one of the reasons why you're here as our featured speaker. How important do you believe business tourism is to a country?
I think it's very important. It is really the foundation, if you will, because your business tourism, your convention tourism in particular, is something that you know about in advance, right? So you can project it. So if you build that pipeline with those good conventions and those meetings, you can see ahead where your impact is, where the revenue that's bringing in, and you can really build on it. So from that point, if you get conventions as your foundation, you can supplement with your leisure push and other things. So I think it's a key piece because it's almost the foundation of what you do, and it's something that you know in advance.
Are there any similarities, have you seen any similarities between our Tourism Development Corporation, company, as opposed to what you do in Miami?
Oh, very, very similar. I think it's just, honestly, it's a matter of semantics and names. I mean, we're basically doing the same things. I think in the U.S., generally, the tourism arms are called Convention and Visitors Bureau overarching. Yours is just called something different from the TDC and the Convention Bureau as a department. But at the end of the day, the mission's still the same. It's about bringing business and visitors to the city. The focus being conventions, this is the main piece, and then also leisure travel and working in the communities and making sure that tourism is spread throughout. So I think the synergies are very similar.
Given the atmosphere at this point in time globally, how difficult is it now for your company, for tourism stakeholders, to drive that need to travel, whether it be to the Caribbean, to the United States, or to Europe?
I think it's a need. It's a growing need. It's I would say for our destination, and I would say probably for your destination, the interest is there all the time, so, but it's also about making sure you have the things in the city, in the island, in your islands, in this particular situation, that a visitor wants to see when they get here. So when they get here, say they go to the beach and do those things, they need to know that there's more to do so that they can come back again. or the next time. So part of this whole, I believe, building the synergies with the neighborhoods and the stakeholders is so that they don't think they come here and all this here is carnival, or all this here is multi-layer. And same with Miami. We're having that, I don't even want to say challenge, opportunity to make sure that people know there's more to Miami than just the water and the weather, that we're deeper than that. So the interest is there, but I think we all have work to do.
I know you haven't had the opportunity to see all of Trinidad and Tobago, but from a tourism perspective, if you were a Trinbagonian and you had to sell Trinidad and Tobago, just based on what you would have seen during your time here, what would be your selling point?
I would tell you, I would put together, and I know that you have this in some capacities because I was able to be in the community yesterday, but the roti, the steel pan, going in to see how the steel pan was made. I mean, because of course you can always play, but then I would see how it was made. I played. I think that that's a big selling point because you have to realize that, yes, in Miami, we have some of those synergies because we're so close to the Caribbean, but just say it's not Miami. Let's say the person's coming in from Boston or they're coming in from Baltimore or LA. Those experiences really are not there in the way that we have them, at least on this part of the world. And so don't take those for granted because those simplest things, going to the house where Stokely Carmichael grew up, that's like amazing. Now, whether you're into Black Panthers or whether you're into that movement or not, it's almost irrelevant. It's just the fact that he grew up in Trinidad, and I don't know if a lot of people know that. I didn't. That didn't mean anything, but I'm just saying that's the selling point. So I would say not to be afraid to go in places that may or may not be the cleanest, that may or may not look the best, because those experiences are authentic. And if somebody wants to find authenticity, they know it's not always going to be clean and pretty and shiny. It's going to be real.
Thank you so much, Connie.
Okay, thank you. Thank you.
Meanwhile, Miss Avion Mills praises Miss Kinnard and says Trinidad and Tobago intends to learn a lot from Miami when it comes to business tourism.
This was all about forming, or I should say it still is, about forming strategic alliances, partnership that will work. What was the overall motive in terms of bringing someone like Connie Kinnard here as your feature speaker?
Well, as you know, the Convention Bureau was only formed in 2009. So, we have so much to learn from larger convention bureaus. And we were so fortunate that about 2 months ago, American Airlines invited the Greater Miami Convention Bureau to Trinidad and Tobago for a partnership. We invited them to lunch, we had a chat, and then we hit it off. Miami Convention Bureau is really interested in exposing their tourists to much more than sun, sea, and sand. So in conversation with her counterpart, we spoke about the multicultural element. Today in the presentation, Connie would have spoken about Little Haiti, promoting communities, Little Cuba. And we know that in Trinidad and Tobago, we have so many unique selling points that could encourage communities to really take advantage of all their strengths in terms of the culture, in terms of music, in terms of the food, in terms of things that really make us uniquely Trinidad and Tobago. So in terms of the festivals, in terms of the nightlife, the sights and attractions, we're truly interested in getting a competitive advantage when we go out to bid for meetings and conferences. So today, I think Connie shared with us really and truly some strategies so that we can really, hone the things that make us win conferences for the destination.
Avion, I understand fully that it is necessary for us to promote business tourism. And when you hear Meet Your Convention Bureau Forum, a lot of people are not too sure as to exactly what it is. And when I say people, I'm thinking about the stakeholders, because a misconception is that TDC may actually be trying to win business. Can we just clarify that a little bit as briefly as we
sure,
can?
yes, that is a misconception, and it's not just for Trinidad and Tobago Convention Bureau. I said up earlier in my presentation that it's a myth that a convention bureau actually plans your conference for you. The Convention Bureau needs stakeholders, and almost every stakeholder in here is either a buyer or a seller. So buyers are those people who are looking for a host destination, host venues for their conference. And the sellers would be persons like the hotels, the tour operators, the airlines, the persons who are in AV, audiovisual businesses, third parties, anyone who is in the meetings and planning industry, including meeting planners. We encourage international organizations looking to host conferences to use our stakeholders, to use our Trinidad and Tobago suppliers. In fact, they prefer a local touch, a local element, because like Connie said, an international meeting planner can have a conference in any hotel, in any facility. What they're looking for is to meet the locals, to meet the suppliers, and to have that truly memorable experience for their delegates. So no, the Convention Bureau is not taking away business. In fact, we're promoting the suppliers, we're promoting to the meeting planners. And every single conference that we have an opportunity to host, we encourage them to use our local meeting planners.
How important, Avion, is business tourism to the economy of Trinidad and Tobago?
It's absolutely critical. As you know, the oil and gas revenues are fast depleting. The government in its diversity thrust is always looking for new revenue streams, and the business tourism niche actually fills that gap and has the potential to fill the gap even further. Business tourism is the fastest growing segment of total international tourism. And it's no surprise that Trinidad and Tobago, because we are the gateway of America, because we are one of the larger performing economies in the Caribbean, and because of the diversity of having both Trinidad and Tobago, all the festivals and the culture, it's no surprise that we stand ready, and probably most ready than other islands in the Caribbean, to benefit from the business tourism niche. And when people hear about business tourism, sometimes they don't realize that the MICE market is a segment of that. So persons are interested in having large meetings, conferences, incentive trips as prize awards for their employees, exhibitions, large events. So this forum actually gave me an opportunity, and the Convention Bureau and the Tourism Development Company, an opportunity to share with Trinidad and Tobago that, you know, there's so much more work to be done in winning conferences and in increasing the revenue potential for Trinidad and Tobago.
And last but not least, when we talk about increasing the revenue potential in Trinidad and Tobago, you mentioned unique selling points.
Yes.
And everyone is an ambassador.
Yes.
And can you just tell us a little bit more about that? How can we help you? And that's always what it is.
Absolutely.
Make Trinidad and Tobago the ultimate tourist destination.
You know, it's one of the myths, again, as we are speaking about misconceptions, it's one of the myths that the Convention Bureau can do it alone. There's absolutely no way the Trinidad and Tobago Convention can do it alone. We need all hands on deck. So that's why you would find a cross-section of persons in our audience, from airlines, hotels, meeting planners, tourism stakeholders, and all ministries. Because if, for example, if there's an issue in terms of national security, then the Convention Bureau cannot control every element. So if there's an issue in terms of the Zika, we need the Ministry of Health on board. So our message today is that it's a partnership, a true partnership. And I think also our keynote speaker, Connie Kennard, also demonstrated that in her example, using the Miami Convention Bureau, they also find it's a partnership with their communities. And that's what we're trying to do. We're trying to share that message with Trinidad and Tobago that we can't do it alone, and we need all hands on deck to increase business tourism arrivals.
Thank you so much, Avion.
Thank you.
It's evident that Trinidad and Tobago has a lot to offer, with the best of both worlds as Caribbean life meets modern amenities. But tourism starts with each and every one of us. If we don't appreciate our own country's beauty, then there is no way that we can encourage persons to come visit the diverse, multicultural Caribbean paradise that is Trinidad and Tobago.